Hello, everyone. My name is Arwa Shafi, and I'm speaking to you right now from Riyadh, all the way from Saudi Arabia. It's around almost 7 p.m. here, so there's a huge time difference, and I'll be talking today about the entrepreneurship scene in Saudi. Just to set expectations, right? I'm not here to tell you Saudi is awesome or Saudi is a great scene for entrepreneurship. But if you plan to sell to the MENA region or to the Saudi scene specifically, then this is a very good session for you, and I hope it will be beneficial for you by the end of it. Please, if you have any questions, feel free to type it in the chat, and I'll try to answer as much as possible, as much as possible. And this is hopefully going to be very, very light and very, very brief for you. So, a bit of background about myself. My name is Arwa Shafi. I've been in the entrepreneurship scene since 2013. So that's more than 8 years now. I've run multiple programs. I do training for competitions. So I've graduated or worked on over 8 cohorts of 3 to 4 different accelerator programs throughout the years. And I've also worked with more than 300 startups in the region. So not only Saudi Arabia, but also the Middle East and North Africa region. I've seen a lot of change from 2013 till now, and I'm here to tell you a bit more about what's happening here that might be beneficial for you. So, Saudi Arabia is known to be a desert country, which is not very true. We do have a lot of different landscapes, and the country has been changing rapidly. These are a few very beautiful scenery. This is called the Top of the World, that's here in Riyadh. These are some of the sea scenes that we have all the way from the west coast. So we have a very diverse land, which resulted in a very diverse culture and a very diverse economy. Especially in the past few years, there has been a huge focus on startups, not only startups that are formed locally, but also startups that are coming from abroad to Saudi to sell to Saudi, or to have Saudi Arabia as a base to sell to the whole world or the MENA region and specifically. There has been regulations in place. There's a lot of incentives programs. So if you are interested to sell to MENA or come to MENA and sell to close countries, or if you're consumer based and you want to target the MENA market or the Saudi market, then this is a very good place to be. A few factors about Saudi Arabia, especially from the consumer side and the population. We do have a very young audience. Um, More than 50% of the population is actually less than 15 years old, if you can believe that. Apologies for the way I'm sharing my screen, but that's the only way I can see both the chat and the screen at the same time. So bear with me on that. So a bit of going back to a few factors about the Saudi population. As I mentioned, 50% of the population is under 15 years old. That means it's a very young audience. They're very open to all different cultures, the type of TVs they watch, the type of influencers they follow on social media has been very, very diverse and very cultured from the west to the east. So that makes it a very open audience and a very open consumer to every new product or every especially new trends and technologies. Um, there has been in the past 2 to 3 years support from the government for companies from abroad and foreign investors and foreign entrepreneurs to come to Saudi. There are multiple intense incentives programs for them to come to the region. Very recently, earlier this year, there was a new policy put in place for any international company if they want to work with the government or any governmental entity, so any ministry, any governmental institute, they have to have their regional headquarters in Riyadh. So there is a lot of international companies that have moved to the country, and that means how do I say that? That means basically the cluster of international companies in the capital of Riyadh has increased greatly, and that makes it even a more diverse and a growing B2B market. So if you are B2B, then that's one area you can look at, whether selling to local companies or selling to international companies that have the regional headquarters in the city here in Riyadh. And another area you can look at is if you are selling to consumers, then this is a very open population to sell to. So what's happening in the startup scene, and why am I telling you this is a good place to be? So a few good stories that we've been seeing in the past few years. Um, there has been a lot of international acquisitions of companies that are formed here in the region or in Saudi specifically. STC Pay is one of the biggest fintech companies here in Saudi. It's as the article mentioned, it's a spin out of our national telecom company, and it's one of the very early ones to get a fintech license. A 15% stake shares from that company has been acquired by Western Union, which is a very well known international transfer. So that's in the fintech scene specifically. We have a very active fintech. I'd say, I don't want to say ecosystem, but like a fintech startup scene. That's another. We have another startup called Tamara, which is being purchase now, pay later fintech. And a few months ago, they just closed one of the biggest Series A um, fundraising round in the region, so in MENA, not only Saudi, and it was led by Checkout.com, which is one of the biggest payment processes in the world. So a lot of we've been receiving a lot of international and global interest in terms of investments because of all of the movement and the regulation that are supporting startups grow. Another one of the biggest news, of course, is the Uber acquisition of Careem. Careem is the local equivalent of Uber. It started out of Dubai and then it moved to Saudi, and their biggest market became Saudi. And almost 2 years ago, it was acquired fully 100% by Uber. The two companies or the two applications still operate in the country, but now they've completely merged. All of these news I'm sharing with you is just an indicator of how the investment scene is very active. The startup scene is very active. We also have one of delivery applications going to IPO very, very soon, which is one of the very like our first startups to go to IPO locally, which is also big news. And there are a few other companies that are preparing to IPO in like our IPOB market. So if you want to learn more about the Saudi scene and the MENA scene specifically, so if you have a startup that you wanna explore the scene here, a few things to keep in mind is we do have a very active VC and angel investor ecosystem. Two ways you can get to learn more about that is through magnet.com, which is targeted toward all of MENA, not only Saudi Arabia. And then you have another personal blog for one of the investors called Hassan Al-Attar, which is the second link. But he has like a full-on directory of investors, accelerator programs, angel groups, support programs, etc. A few things to keep in mind: there are investors who focuses on investing in companies that are outside of Saudi, and there are other investors who focuses on investing in companies that are from out of Saudi but plan to come to Saudi, and some of them not necessarily required to come to Saudi at all. So it is. I highly encourage you, if you're interested, to explore some of the VCs and the investors that are listed on these websites. And again, feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about that as well, and I'm happy to help. A few, as I've mentioned, there are a few accelerator programs that are targeted toward bringing talent and bringing startups from abroad to Saudi Arabia. One of them is called Taqaddam, which is the program I currently run. It's an annual program that we run once a year. We receive thousands of applications from all over the world. Our current cohort, we've accepted more than 60 startups. We had companies from all the way from Hawaii, and then all the way from the Middle East. We have Morocco, Jordan, of course, Palestine, and then we have of course a cluster of GCC countries that are participating. We are open to everyone and everywhere. One of our graduates, called Waya Kid, we had the two founders were, one was based in Colombia and the other one was based in Mexico before they moved to Saudi Arabia, and they established the company here. If you are interested, I can tell you more information on a one-on-one session. But if your company does hardware or a physical product, then Jeddah is a very good place to start in terms of incorporating and setting up a company. If you're looking more at B2B or financial services or healthcare, then the capital Riyadh would be a very good place to be in as well. Um, what we offer in Taqaddam, as I mentioned, it's a 6 months program. We run it once a year. That program includes training, includes mentorship, includes access to the regional and local network. Um, there's co-working spaces. There are a few subsidized and perks, subsidized services and perks. And then there's funding, which is $40,000. That's grant based, so it's equity free. And then there is more follow-on funding after the end of the program that reaches $100,000. This is one program. Of course, I'm biased. I run the program, so I'm telling you more about it. But there are other programs that are international that just came to the country. 500 Startups is a very famous one. We have Techstars, we have Plug and Play, we have Seed Stars, that are all establishing their local programs or regional programs that are established in Saudi Arabia as well. And that are all options for you if you're interested. Another thing that we offer at KAUST is a soft landing program, which includes subsidized travel and housing to Saudi Arabia for 6 months, and access to researcher and R&D officers in case you're interested in that area. Again, I'm not here to tell you these are great programs. I'm here to tell you, if you are interested, if it makes sense for you to move to Saudi Arabia or sell to Saudi Arabia, or make Saudi Arabia a hub for you to access the MENA region, then there are a few really good places to start with, and that's one of them. Um, I'd like you to stay in touch, and I want to open the floor for more questions. This is my contact. Please reach out to me if you have any questions about the industry, about the area, or about the startup scene. A few factors that I want you to keep in mind is it is becoming very competitive, but it's also very open. There are a few regulations in place for foreigners or expats to establish companies in Saudi Arabia. Nevertheless, it's recommended to have a holding structure, meaning you have your own company set up, for example, in the U.S., in Delaware, or in Cayman Islands, or in Brazil, and then you have that company be the holding company, so it 100% owns the Saudi entity or the local entity that you want to establish there. What a lot of our startups are doing is that, for example, they might have their technical team somewhere, and then they have their business development and their sales or marketing team in Saudi. And then eventually they would have more of community people and operations, etc., depending on your industry. A few industries that are um, I'd say I don't want to say trending, but there is a lot of focus and shift towards these industries recently here in Saudi. Fintech, of course, is one very big scene because there is a lot of regulations that moving towards support of that scene. There are a few policies that we're just rolling, and there is a sandbox that supports any new models for fintech. We also have a very active healthcare technology scene, and that's from providing the healthcare service in a new way, in insurance, in telemedicine, in teletherapy, in physiotherapy, or the hardware part, from manufacturing, 3D printing, human parts to other areas. And then there's a new shift towards, or new focus towards, the supply chain and logistics and retail. A lot of these three solutions are more software driven. So it's more of ARB systems or software solutions to tackle a specific problem. But we also have a new wave of companies that are doing like hands-on logistics support for different areas, and they're becoming more niche and focused. So that's one of the trends that we're seeing in the startup scene in Saudi, that we see more niche focused startups than generic ones. And when I say that, I mean, for example, you'll find a company that offers storage for SMEs that does food and beverages. So they provide cooling storage that's short term, for example. So it's this specific. They target a very specific customer segment in terms of how their size, and in terms of the starting offering is very specific, which is very different than what we were seeing years ago, where a startup would come and say, I want to offer all supply chain solution. Another thing we're seeing is a very diverse team, like a founding team. Rarely we find a founding team that's all Saudi. A lot of the founding teams would be from different nationalities that are in Saudi, and another new model that we're seeing, especially after COVID or during COVID, is the founding team would be scattered all over the world. So we'd have a co-founder from the East, some co-founder from Europe, another co-founder from Africa, and then we have a co-founder in Saudi. Um, so this is a model that we're also seeing a lot of investors and programs are okay with teams being fully remote, with teams being hybridly remote. So it's not a requirement for a company to be fully in Saudi for the whole founding team or the full team. There are some requirements, for example, to have an office if you need some type of licenses, etc. But it's not a requirement for the whole team to be here in the country. There is not a requirement for the whole team to be of certain nationalities or to be only Saudis. And as I've mentioned, there are programs that are focused towards including that diversity and offering a very flexible support plan. There are, if you want to incorporate in Saudi, there are certain routes that you go to. The fees have been waived for a lot of the licenses at the first 1 or 2 years, and the fees to establish a foreign entity or a foreign investor license has also decreased since from the past few years. So there's a lot of incentive now for startups specifically to open and to launch in Saudi. So this is my contact. If you're interested, please take a screenshot, and I would be happy to stay in touch and give you more information if you're interested. I hope this was beneficial, and thank you, Oli, and the WebCongress team for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.